Commander Adrian Hunter sprinted frantically towards the command center, his breath coming in short, controlled bursts, as the urgent wail sound of the emergency alarm echoed off the metallic walls of EGAS Hub. The station's artificial gravity felt like it was pressing down on him, reminding him of how precarious their existence was in this faraway sector of space. As the doors to the center hissed open, Hunter was met with a scene of controlled. "Commander Hunter, I'm glad you could join us." Admiral Mia Cruz, her face a mask of grim determination, said in a voice tight with tension, "We've got a situation." As the assembled leaders and officers sat hunched over consoles, their fingers dancing across haptic interfaces, various holographic displays flickered with real-time data streams, casting an eerie blue glow over their faces. At the center of it all stood Commander Cruz, and Hunter's attention was immediately drawn to the two extraterrestrial figures flanking the Admiral. On her right side, a towering Zarkoni warrior named Kau Thax stood tall and armored. The bony ridges on his head glowed in the light, giving him an otherworldly appearance. On Cruz's left side, the Etherian ambassador Xylos pulsated with subtle bioluminescence, their translucent, gelatinous form. "What happened?" Hunter asked, his mind already racing with potential outcomes. Admiral Cruz's fingers fluttered over a nearby console, bringing up a holographic map of the sector. Red markers blinked ominously across the screen. "Display 2 hours ago, we lost contact with Outpost Sigma and Delta at the same time as we heard distress calls from the colonies on Vidian and Stellaris Primator." His stomach dropped as he felt coordinated attacks. KX's gruff voice filled the room, and reports indicated a well-organized assault with multiple ships and advanced weaponry. The ships struck with precision and brutality. Ambassador Zill's form rippled, and their voice reached a melodious whisper that somehow made its way across the room. "Our deep space sensors picked up warp signatures consistent with the Blood Spire Consortium. It seems they have extended their operations into this sector." Hunter felt a shiver run down his spine at the mention of the name. The Blood Spire Consortium, a loose coalition of pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries, infamous for their brutality and technological prowess. With dread, Hunter asked Admiral Cruz if there were any casualty reports. "Commander, rare minerals' strategic positioning has been observed, and your expansion efforts have not gone unnoticed." Ambassador Zio pulsed with a soft blue light, suggesting that the consortium may perceive your presence as a danger to their own ambitions. Hunter's anger surged through him as he clenched his fists. Why is target us being targeted now? KX's upper arms gestured towards the holographic map. Ambassador Zio's powerful pulsed reports this sector is rich in resources. Hunter's mind raced, analyzing potential strategies and countermeasures. He knew they had to act fast, but they also needed to be smart. The consortium was not an enemy to be underestimated. They were trying to gain valuable resources and send a message. Admiral Cruz nodded grimly, and the room fell silent as a result. The weight of the situation was pressing down on everyone present. In the midst of a tense silence, Cruz's eyes narrowed in concentration. "We must find a solution quickly. We cannot afford to let this situation continue, nor can we afford to leave our remaining colonies and outposts open to additional attacks." KX's voice rumbled with barely contained rage as the Zarkonian Empire prepared to support our warrior fleets. "We will crush these pirates and scatter their remains across the void within 2 solar cycles." Ambassador Xylos's warning red hue rippled with urgency, and the Zarkoni said, "Hey, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Have you enjoyed the video so far? If so, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps the channel grow and reach more people. Now, let's find out what comes next." Admiral Cruz's eyes lit up as he spoke. "We need a targeted response, something that sends a clear message without escalating into all-out war." Hunter nodded in agreement, seeing the wisdom in the Therian words. Under the influence of an ominous light, The following idea was proposed. What if we set a trap? Let them think they found another easy target. Then we'll hit them with everything we have. This sparked a flurry of discussion, with each member contributing their thoughts and opinions. Ambassador Xylos pulsed with cautious optimism, while Hunter nodded in agreement, his tactical mind already working out potential strategies. Could work, he said, but we'd need to convince the consortium that they won't fall for an obvious ploy. Cruz smiled, her predatory expression serving as a stark reminder of why she was so important. You have to go, she said. I'm very proud of you. Had ascended to a present position, so we'll make it seem convincing. We'll offer them a tempting target that they can't refuse. The leaders met for an hour to discuss the big picture of their plan. They decided to set up a fake outpost that looked like a crucial link in their supply chain. It would be lightly guarded so it would look real, but not so heavily that it would discourage an attack. Meanwhile, they would prepare a devastating counterattack, utilizing all their resources. Admiral Cruz spoke to the room one last time, her voice resonating with determination. It goes without saying that the stakes are extremely high. This isn't merely about safeguarding our interests. It's about demonstrating to the galaxy that humanity can thrive in the face of adversity. Hunter felt a mixture of excitement and fear as the meeting drew to a close. They were taking a huge risk, but the potential reward was worth it. We, the Trethrians and our allies, will not be beaten. We have carved out our place among the stars, and no amount of pirates can wreak havoc on it. Calthax clenched his fists in solidarity, signaling that the Zarkoni and the Empire are on our side. Admiral, these criminals will soon learn to fear the combined might of our people. Ambassador Xylos' yellow light pulsed with determination. The Ithians will also offer our full support. Our sensor rays and cloaking technologies are at your disposal. Hunter felt a surge of power. With a sense of pride, Hunter approached Admiral Cruz and said, I'd like to volunteer to lead the ground team for this operation. I know the risks, but I can't sit this one out. Cruz studied him for a moment before nodding. I had a feeling you'd say that, Adrian. All right. The ground team is yours, but I want you to handpick your... In the days that followed, Aegis EGI became a beehive of activity as every available resource was poured into preparing for the upcoming operation. Engineers worked tirelessly to modify ships and weapons. The squad couldn't afford any weak links, so Hunter saluted admirably and promised not to let the Admiral down. As he left the command center, Hunter's mind was already racing with preparations. He had a team to assemble the necessary equipment, as well as formulate strategies. The Bloodspire Consortium had no idea what lay ahead. With laser-like focus, intelligence officers combed through every scrap of data on the consortium, while combat teams ran endless simulations to prepare for every possible scenario. Hunter assembled his round team, carefully selecting a mix of experienced veterans and promising young talent. Each member brought something special to the table, from demolitions experts to tech specialists to close-quarters combat masters. During training, Hunter pushed his team to their limits and beyond, running drill after drill that simulated every possible scenario. During one evening, while Hunter was reviewing tactical data in his quarters, he had an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Xylos gracefully entered the room, radiating a soothing light. Commander Hunter's melodious voice filled the space. I hope I am not interrupting you, Hunter said, standing with a respectful nod. No, Ambassador. What can I do for you? Xylos's form rippled in a gesture that Hunter understood. Had grown to expect from them, I wanted to talk to you about the impending operation. I get that we have to do something, but I'm worried about how things could escalate. Xylos said that the Bloodspire Consortium, for all their savagery, aren't stupid. They'll see this as a calculated attack on them. Have we thought about the long-term effects of this? Hunter pondered the ambassador's remarks. The ambassador is correct in assuming that the consortium will retaliate. However, we have witnessed firsthand how unchecked groups like this can become, bolder and more aggressive. At times, a display of force is required to preserve peace. Xylos's pulse pulsed with a thoughtful white hue, suggesting that you may be correct. While it is not the Aetherian way to seek conflict, we recognize that it can sometimes find us nonetheless. As Nikos stalked off to the Mother Bailiff, Galen spoke. I can only hope that this action will bring greater stability to the sector, not more chaos. As the ambassador turned to leave, Hunter felt obligated to say one last thing. Ambassador Xylos, we appreciate the support from the Aeon. Your people's dedication to diplomacy and peace is admirable, and it reminds us of why we're fighting. Zio's form shimmered with what Hunter had come to recognize as their smile. Thank you, Commander. May your mission bring justice and restore balance to our sector. As the door closed, Hunter felt compelled to add one last thing. Resuming his tactical displays, Hunter turned his attention back to the conversation that had weighed heavily on him. The conversation had made it clear that this wasn't just about seeking revenge or justice. It was about ensuring a future where humans and their allies could thrive among the stars. Motivated by a newfound resolve, Hunter dove headfirst into his preparations. The Bloodspire Consortium had erred in its assessment of humanity and its allies. They would soon discover the true cost of their mistake. In a chamber illuminated by the eerie red light of emergency lighting, the leaders of the most feared pirate coalition in the sector gathered to plot their next move. Captain Vor, a towering Kovar with mottled gray skin and cybernetic enhancements snaking across his skull, paced the length of the holographic display table. His 4 eyes, each a different shade of yellow, scanned the faces of his fellow conspirators. The consortium's flagship descended silently through the void, its hull a patchwork of stolen technology and battle scars deep within. It was too enchanted to pull up empty space. In this new sector, our first strike against human expansion has yielded impressive results. With a wave of his hand, he brought up a holographic display of their recent conquests. 2 outposts were razed, 2 colonies were stripped bare, and the haul of resources and technology will keep our coffers full for cycles to come. Some captains were familiar allies, while others were newly recruited to the consortium's cause. All were united by the promise of untold riches. Captain Vislar, a slender Soran with iridescent scales, leaned forward, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. The humans were taken completely unawares as their defenses crumbled like sandcastles before the tide. Vor nodded, a predatory grin splitting his face. Now, we are going to attack the center of their operations in this sector. He manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on a massive space station orbiting a gas giant called Eyes Hub, who was the linchpin of human intelligence. The assembled captains studied the station's defenses with gleaming, greedy eyes, considering it an impressive target that would cement the Bloodspire Consortium's dominance in the sector and human efforts for years to come. A voice cut through the excited chatter, saying, "We shouldn't do this." The words were soft but clearly conveyed a sense of mischief. Conviction sent shockwaves through the gathering as all eyes were directed towards Captain Cologne, a seasoned raider and highly esteemed tactician within the consortium. The bioluminescent tendrils of VOR pulsed with an unsettling rhythm as he met Vor's probing gaze. his tone a blend of curiosity and warning. Cologne advanced towards the holographic display, his tendrils creating elaborate patterns in the air as he spoke. "I've studied the humans extensively. They are unlike any species," Captain Vizsla hissed dismissively, bringing to mind images of ancient warriors clashing with swords, tanks rolling across war-torn landscapes, starships engaging in furious dogfights, and how these people are relentlessly adaptable and fiercely protective of what they consider theirs. "We've encountered tough species before, and humans are no different. First off, these people are not by technical or mechanical products. Starships are built for a common use," Captain Vizsla hissed dismissively, bringing to mind his considered demands for peace. "Look at the casualty reports from their recent attacks. We caught them off guard, but for every human they killed, they took down 3 of ours. Their soldiers fought to the last breath, buying time for civilians to escape." Trellin shook his head, his bioluminescence flaring with urgency. "You don't understand. When threatened, humans unite with a singular purpose, transforming them into an unstoppable force. The civilians join their defenders in fighting with a ferocity that shocked even our hardened warriors." Vor's eyes narrowed as he asked, "Kron, are you suggesting that we give up on our plans because we're afraid?" Kellon responded calmly, his voice unwavering despite the room's tension, that there are easier targets in this sector that won't unleash humanity's wrath. If we keep going in this direction, humans will not stop until they... The captains in the room fell into a heavy silence as they processed Kellon's words. A small amount of doubt crossed some of their faces, but Captain Vicker quickly reacted with a mocking laugh. "I never took you for a coward," she said, sneeringly. "These humans are soft, pampered creatures who've grown fat on the riches of their expansion. They've never faced a true threat like the Bloodspire Consortium." The gathering bore murmurs of exasperation, and Kalan's concerns were acknowledged, but Weethel was too strange in his concerns for the Leadiot. "They call themselves the Jurians," Morandi corrected. "Gods, the humans have gone too far to turn back now. We will take what we want. It's in our nature." He turned to the other captains, his voice rising with fervor, and said, "Think of the glory that awaits us. We will be the ones who brought down the mighty human empire. Songs will be sung of our deeds for generations to come." The assembled pirates cheered, drowning out any remaining doubts. Kron looked around the room, his bioluminescence dimming with resignation. A low voice said, "Then you have sealed our fate," he whispered, his words lacking in volume. In the midst of all the excitement, as the other captains gathered around the holographic display to plot attacks, Kalon quietly escaped from the gathering. Making his way through the maze-like corridors of the Blood Tide, his thoughts raced with the consequences of what lay ahead. Back in his quarters, Kalon started to gather his few valuable possessions, but he couldn't help but feel like he was witnessing the beginning of the end. In the war room, the Bloodspire Consortium was unaware that their most experienced tactician had departed. Amidst the excited chatter, the pirate captains finalized their daring plan, which Vor laid out in detail. They would attack E's hub quickly and forcefully, with a first wave targeting their outer defenses. Vor sneered, using the holographic display to highlight important targets, and they would overwhelm their communication relays and sensor arrays, cutting them off from any possible. "We'll launch our main assault while they scramble to respond. I volunteer my ship, the Venom Fang, to lead the charge. We'll punch through their defensive line and dock directly with the station. Once we're aboard, we'll split into teams. Some will secure vital systems and neutralize any resistance. Everyone should focus on looting valuables. Remember, we're not just after them." As the meeting drew to a close, Varkor addressed the group one last time, saying, "We strike in 48 hours. That gives us time to refine our resources, technology, research data, and anything else that can give us an edge in future operations. The assembled captains contributed their own expertise to the plan, discussed potential outcomes, assigned roles, and set a timeline for the assault. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, as this would be the Bloodspire Consortium's most daring operation to date. As the pirates eagerly readied themselves for the impending assault, Kron's warnings faded from their minds. Little did they know that the humans, far from being the easy prey the Consortium had imagined, were actually preparing to unleash a response that would shake their coalition to its very core. The anticipation of capturing the humans, still reeling from our previous attacks, fueled their preparations for glory. As the final seconds ticked away, the Bloodspire Consortium's fleet burst forth from hyperspace in a spectacular display of destructive intent. The flagship of Captain Vor, which bore the scars of numerous successful raids, led the charge, while the human outpost, a modular structure suspended against the backdrop, lay in wait. The humans had finally realized they were under attack and were prepared to fight back. The 48 hours of tent preparation had come to an end. In a sparse network, defensive satellites circled around a whirling nebula, their weapon systems ready to meet the approaching threat. A small fleet of human ships formed the first line of defense, their engines blaring as they prepared to intercept. All ships began an attack, and the command channel echoed with the guttural voice of Sigma Vor. The pirate fleet surged forward, unleashing a destructive force that flooded the seemingly unprepared human position. Laser fire crisscrossed the void, further adding to the chaos. Captain Ci's ship, the Venom Fang, spearheaded a group of smaller attack craft in a wide arc, flanking the human formation. Watching them scramble, she hissed over the comms, her voice dripping with contempt like insects before a storm. The human ships responded admirably, forming a tight defensive screen around the outpost. Their return fire was pinpoint accurate. Several pirate fighters, as they were caught in the crossfire, the defenders appeared to be holding their ground. But the Bloodspire Consortium was not unprepared. A swarm of boarding pods, each containing bloodthirsty raiders, erupted from the belly of the blood tide. The pods raced towards the human ships, latching onto their hulls like metallic parasites. Vor roared, and the question became, how well would they fight when the void itself became their enemy? The defense ERs fought bravely, but the overwhelming number of attackers overwhelmed them one by one. The lights on the human ships flickered and died as their crews were silenced by the merciless onslaught. As the last human ship fell silent, the pirates shifted their focus to the outpost, where their defenses appeared to be weakening due to the erratic laser fire and sputtering shield generators caused by the concentrated assault. As the battle raged, the pirates noticed oddities in the human defense. The outposts returned fire, initially fierce, but began to slacken. "Victory is within our grasp," Vor commanded, with his eyes sparkling with anticipation. The blood tide led the charge, its massive cannons tearing through the outpost's weakening shields. Smaller ships darted in its wake, peppering the structure with a relentless barrage of plasma bolts and missiles. The human defenses crumbled under the assault, unable to match the pirates' overwhelming firepower. A huge explosion rocked the pirate fleet as they closed in for the kill. The defense systems moved predictably, and Vizsla sailed her ship corkscrewing through a field of debris to launch another salvo at the station. "I've never seen humans fall so quickly," Viorol nodded, a cruel smile spreading across his features. "They underestimated us, thinking their little outpost could stand against us. I want that station stripped for their..." As they neared the now vulnerable outpost, the remaining point defense turrets fired intermittently, but they were helpless against the pirates' onslaught. The first boarding parties breached the outposts, Howl pouring into its corridors with weapons raised, and encountered the pirates in a triumphant roar. The larger ships were shielded from danger by fighter cover as they launched the boarding shuttles. The automated security systems were quickly overwhelmed by the pirates' superior numbers and ferocity. They searched every compartment as ordered over the communications, hoping to secure valuable technology and data. As they swarmed through the station, the pirates' initial bloodlust turned to confusion. Room after room they encountered appeared deserted, as if the occupants had fled in a hurry. In the command center, complex computer systems were running, simulations that mirrored the actions of a fully manned outpost. The pirates were so focused on claiming their loot that they failed to notice the real nature of their conquest. They imagined it to be a simple victory, their egos inflated by the seeming weakness of their human enemies. As VOA strode through the command center, his enormous figure towering over the diminutive, he snarled at the equipment, downloading every bit of data and intelligence. The pirates sacked the outpost, taking anything valuable with them. Their confidence skyrocketed because they had faced the renowned human defenses and emerged victorious with barely a scratch. The ease of their conquest only strengthened their belief in their own superiority. One of the junior officers reported that they had secured the outpost, and all resistance had been have neutralized the threat and are starting to transfer the salvaged materials to our ships. VOR nodded, his four eyes shining with satisfaction. Excellent. We are ready to move on to our next target. The nearby colony will not stand a chance now that we have crushed their first line of defense. The pirate fleet began to regroup, their ships loaded with the spoils of their easy victory. As they prepared to jump to their next target, none of them noticed the faint encrypted transmissions coming from the abandoned outpost, carrying vital intelligence to their targets. In their latest victory, the Armada of the Bloodspire Consortium set out for the human colony, fully confident that they had dealt a devastating blow to the colonists' defenses in this sector. The anticipation among the pirate crews was palpable as they neared the colony, and they could almost smell the riches that awaited them. They could almost see the horror on the colonists' faces as they were ambushed. They were about to face their doom when the VOR ordered all ships to prepare for an orbital bombardment. As they approached their target, the pirates thought, "Let's soften them up before we go in for the kill." They observed no signs of increased defenses or preparation as the colon came into view. It appeared that the colon hadn't heard about the outpost's fall yet. As Vorkor's fleet approached what they believed to be their ultimate prize, they never imagined that the colony appeared to be defenseless and ready for capture, so the pirates were ready to unleash their full fury in anticipation of another glorious conquest. However, beneath the placid surface, the colony's real defenses were waiting for the perfect opportunity. At that moment, the Bloodspire Consortium's fleet swooped down on the colony like a swarm of locusts, their ships obscuring the sky. Captain Vor's voice boomed over the comms, signaling the beginning of planetary bombardment, which would calm the humans down. As the barrage persisted, the colony, which appeared defenseless, was bombarded with plasma bolts and energy beams. Explosions rocked the surface, sending clouds of dust and debris hurtling into the air. The pirates, encouraged by their growing confidence, laughed their way through the command channels. Scurry Vislar, in particular, cackled as a ship dove low for a strafing run, mimicking the behavior of ants. However, as the dust settled, an unsettling silence descended upon the battlefield, bringing with it the anticipated sights of devastation, and fear was noticeably lacking as the colony stood relatively unharmed, shielded from harm by mysterious energy shields. Vor's pupils widened in confusion as he braced for the impending ground assault. As the landing craft streaked through the sky, hordes of pirates charged forward, their cries for help reverberating across the landscape. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet erupted, revealing a hidden danger. Sleek fighters and gunships swarmed the pirate vessels, which were now caught in a deadly crossfire. Squads of heavily armed human soldiers and their extraterrestrial allies emerged from the bunkers, and precision fire quickly decimated the pirates. A pirate lieutenant screamed, "It's a trap!" But his voice was cut short as a plasma bolt hit its mark. In the skies above, the human defense fleet appeared out of nowhere, their stealth systems turned off, and sleek fighters and gunships swarmed the pirate vessels, causing them to become mired in deadly crossfire. Captain Vore roared in frustration, asking how this was even possible. At the last second, Commander Mien's fighter squadron executed a daring maneuver, diving straight into the heart of the pirate fleet. We were defenseless. As a calm, almost amused voice crackled over the comms. It was Commander Adrian Hunter, whose holographic image appeared on the Blood Tides bridge. "Welcome to our little surprise party, where the human forces and their alien allies unleashed their full might against the Blood Spire Consortium." He silently fingered the comm, and the bronze doors slid open, sending them both into the heart of the pirate fleet. We were defenseless as a comm, almost immune to the Blood Spire Consortium. More missiles disintegrated into a flurry of missiles and laser fire, with each ship transforming into a lethal pinwheel of destruction. The pirates, taken aback by the daring attack, rushed to regroup. But the human pilots were relentless, their movements coordinated with unfathomable precision. Captain Vore watched in growing horror as his forces were systematically dismantled, his expression changing from bewilderment to outrage. The tide was turning, and the pirate shock troops found themselves in the middle of it all. Captain Ethan Malone and his mixed unit of human and Zoran troops were completely outmaneuvered and cornered by a numerically superior force of pirate shock troops. Things seemed bleak until Malone had a brilliant idea. They could use the Zoran's active camouflage to cover their fire. With a shout, the human soldiers unleashed a barrage of suppressing fire, while their Zoran allies seemed to fade into the terrain. The pirates, fixated on the human gunfire, failed to notice the Zaran approaching. As a group of civilian volunteers protected both humans and aliens from harm, xenobiologist Dr. Clara Monroe led the charge, while the extraterrestrial warriors moved stealthily through the enemy ranks like ghosts, their crystalline blades finding weak points in the pirates' armor with surgical precision. The human soldiers and their extraterrestrial allies worked in perfect harmony, seemingly anticipating the pirates' every move. Meanwhile, in the Kulin Main Plaza, a surge of extraterrestrial reinforcements threatened to overwhelm their position, so Monroe, with a twinkle in her eye, flashed with pride as she herded the survivors into the research lab, yelling for them to come inside. As the last of them passed through, she activated the lab's experimental shield technology, a fragile but powerful defense that she and her extraterrestrial colleagues had been developing. The pirates unleashed a barrage of weapon fire, but the shimmering barrier absorbed and redirected their attacks, leading them in disbelief. Vice's ship, the Venom Fang, was pursued by what seemed like a damaged human cruiser. "I've got you now," she snarled, locking on her weapons. Suddenly the cruiser split apart, revealing a cluster of smaller, heavily armed vessels. These vessels swarmed around the Venom Fang, peppering it with laser fire from all angles. As Vice's ship's systems began to fail, she screamed in frustration. How could they be so coordinated? The answer emerged in the shape of a massive holographic projection that appeared above the colony. It showed a complex. The colony's AI-driven defense system was presented visually as a network of interconnected nodes. Human and alien operators coordinated their movements with the AI in a seamless symphony of organic and artificial intelligence. "The best defense is a good offense," Commander Hunter proclaimed once more. "We humans have taken it a step further," Vore added. "Our best defense is making you think we have no defense at all." With each passing battle, the human force unleashed ever more advanced tactics, combining organic and artificial intelligence. Using a series of well-planned micro-jumps, Lieutenant Kiro Yamamoto's fighter squadron pinned down the pirate ships and left them no room to escape. On land, human soldiers took advantage of the colony's modular architecture, rearranging buildings to set up unexpected firing positions and escape routes. And Dorians, who had an enhanced sense of spatial awareness, worked in tandem with human snipers to eliminate the pirates. The colony's command center commander, Adrian Hunter, used a combination of strategic brilliance and adaptability to keep the pirates off balance. Hunter would shift tactics frequently, making it impossible for the enemy to predict his next move. In one particularly decisive move, he ordered the decloaking of a Luminar cruiser in a calm, authoritative voice to focus fire on Sector 7. Under Hunter's leadership, the diverse abilities of the various races came together to form an unstoppable force. As the tide of battle turned decisively in favor of the defenders, individual acts of heroism shone through the chaos. Private First Class Emily Sato, separated from her unit, found herself protecting a group of alien civilians from a pirate assault. Malone, suppressing fire, flanked them from the east, while the human forces boxed them in. The coordination of the lay forces appeared almost telepathic. With nothing more than her sidearm and a makeshift barricade, Sato repelled the assailants for nearly an hour. The civilians who had come to help her were inspired by her unfaltering bravery and handed her ammunition and bandaged her wounds. When reinforcements finally came, they discovered Sato, bloodied but unbowed, standing guard over the very group of aliens she had rescued. This image would later come to symbolize the human-alien alliance. Meanwhile, in the residential sectors, the pirates encountered what they had anticipated to be.
Frightened bystanders exposed themselves as a highly trained militia, while commonplace items like garden tools and household chemicals were turned into lethal explosives. A pirate who had been encroaching on what he believed to be a defenseless family ended up facing a human with a homemade flamethrower. The last thing the pirate saw before he was consumed by flames above the planet's surface was the look of determination on the man's face. Space battle raged on with equal intensity as human ships defied conventional tactics, moved in complex formations, and employed seemingly random but devastatingly effective orbital trajectories. The space battle reached a decisive turn when the human flagship, the HSS Indomitable, under the command of Katamko Camila Duarte, dived straight into the pirate fleet's advanced point defense systems, creating a tunnel of destruction. All hands were braced for impact as Duarte shouted as the Indomitable plowed into the pirate fleet. The pirate fleet was divided in two, leaving them unprepared and susceptible to the coordinated attacks of both human and alien vessels on the Blood Tides Bridge. Vor, horrified, watched as ships he had targeted with ease were systematically dismantled, revealing hidden weapons systems that sliced through his forces with merciless efficiency. The colony appeared to be coming to life, with buildings rearranging themselves to form new defensive positions and firing lines falling back. Barrere let out a scream. With an air of growing desperation in his voice, he gave orders to regroup, but they were abruptly interrupted by a barrage of electromagnetic pulses that crippled the pirate fleet's systems. The blood tide surged, its engines sputtering and dying, and the tides of battle turned decisively in favor of the defenders. Just as this was happening, a scene unfolded that would haunt the minds of all the remaining pirates. A group of soldiers from the consortium had broken into one of the colony's outer districts, thinking they had finally found some susceptible civilians to use as hostages. They descended into what was the scene unfolded as a group of children, both human and alien, huddled together in what seemed like a schoolyard. A young teacher, her voice quivering, pleaded with the children, her arms outstretched in a protective manner. "Please," she said, her voice trembling, but the lead pirate scoffed, raising his weapon. The children, he said, made excellent bargaining chips. Suddenly, a squad of human and Andorran soldiers decloaked and surrounded the pirates. Their weapons were trained on the intruders, but they refrained from using them out of fear of hurting the innocent children. Ensuring the safety of the children, the standoff remained tense for a while. Eventually, one of the human soldiers removed his helmet and looked directly at the pirate leaders. "You have a choice to make," he said calmly, but warned that the pirate leaders would find no place to hide in this galaxy if they hurt even one of the children. The combination of the soldiers' conviction, the defenders saw some inconsistencies in the story, struck a chord with the pirate leader. The scene was a powerful testament to the bond between humans and their alien allies, a bond forged not just in battle. As the pirates surrendered, the human soldier moved swiftly to secure them. Andorians rushed to comfort the children, their antennae gently swaying in a soothing pattern. He felt something inside him break as he slowly lowered his weapon and ordered his men to stand down. His voice was barely a whisper. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the true strength of humanity and its allies was revealed. It wasn't just their advanced technology or clever tactics that had won the day. It was compassion and shared values outside. The battle was drawing to a close, and the remaining pirate ships, those that could still fly, were fleeing the system, leaving behind a graveyard of broken vessels and shattered ambitions on the planet's surface. In the colony's command center, Commander Hunter surveyed the holographic battle map. The last red dots, representing the pirate forces, were vanishing one by one. With a solemn nod, he turned to his alien advisors, a statuesque Zaran and a crystalline Luminar. "It's over," he said, but stressed that their work was just beginning. The Bloodspire Consortium had arrived expecting to find an easy target, but instead had roused a sleeping giant. These survivors of the pirate fleet limped off into space, carrying with them a message that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. They were a coalition of species united under human leadership, bound together by shared values and a common vision for the future. The humans and their allies would not be trifled with. This sector of space was under their protection, and they would defend it and each other with everything they had. Meanwhile, Captain Vor watched his carefully laid plans crumble as his crew perished. As he considered his options, Vor's jaws clenched in frustration. The humans and their allies had shown to be far more formidable than he had anticipated. With a sound of defeat, he established communication with his remaining forces, ordering all units to stand down. The words appeared to linger in the air, saying, "We've lost contact with ground forces in sectors 3 through 6. Our fleet is in disarray." And just before chaos broke out, some pirate ships turned off their weapons. Others, either out of desperation or misguided loyalty, attempted to flee to the ground. As the remaining pirate forces were encircled, human and alien peacekeepers stepped in, weapons drawn but fingers off the triggers. It was a display of force, sure, but also a message that needless bloodshed would be avoided if possible. As the last pockets of resistance were subdued, a strange calm descended. Soldier Hunter stood in the colony's central plaza, surveying the aftermath of the battle. Buildings lay in ruins, and casualties were high on both sides. He watched as humans and aliens worked together to treat the wounded, and the survivors emerged from their shelters, blinking in the sunlight of a world that had almost been lost. Human children rushed to embrace their alien friends, strengthening the bonds of their shared community. Commence repairs. A wave of pride washed over him as his community buzzed, and Admiral Camila Duarte's holographic image appeared. "Excellent work, Commander," she said, her eyes shining with approval. But there was still one last message that needed to be sent. Hunter nodded glumly, knowing exactly what to do. With a small team of engineers and communication specialists, he sailed to one of the downed pirate ships, a Corvette-class vessel that still had Lar Laley intact. And as they approached, he could see the terror in the eyes of the crew. Inside the ship, peacekeepers were escorting captured crew members away, but Hunter's team wasted no time getting past the security measures and into the main communication array. The inside of the ship was completely different from human vessels, with sharp angles and a functional design that lacked the cozy touches that crews often added to their living quarters. A technician on board reported broadcasting on all of the consortium's frequencies, as well as general distress channels. Whatever you say. The entire Commander Adrian Hunter of the Human Galactic Alliance speaks to the Bloodspire Consortium and all who dare. He takes a deep breath, remembering the colonists who bravely faced death, the alien allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with humanity, and the innumerable lives that hung in the balance of this moment. His voice is clear and unwavering, carrying the weight of not only humanity, but the entire alliance they had forged. Listen, we stand in solidarity, protecting those we hold dear. We will not betray our friends or cause harm to any of our fellow humans. Those who cross us will not only face our fury, but also the unwavering resilience of a species that has learned to adapt and triumph through adversity. You will discover this harsh reality the hard way. Humanity does not forgive.